Good morning. I'm going to read through 3.4 and 3.5 and talk through some of the things that are happening. At the end of 3.3, we saw both Romeo and Juliet's reaction to the news that Tybalt has been murdered, or Tybalt has been killed, and Romeo has been banished to Mantua, which is a town outside of Verona. Not all that far outside of Verona, but the idea being that he's not allowed to return to Verona, which is really a lenient punishment considering the prince's proclamation in the beginning of the play that thrice Montague, thrice Capulet, you've each disturbed the peace, and if any one of you does it again, your life shall pay the forfeit. Basically, you're going to die if you disturb the peace again. Well, Romeo killing Tybalt is a major disturbance of the peace linked to the ancient grudge between the two families. Nonetheless, the prince goes lenient on him, probably because of the circumstances in which Romeo was responding to Tybalt having killed his friend Mercutio, Romeo's friend Mercutio, who incidentally is a kinsman to the prince. So Mercutio was related to the prince, which may also explain why he was a bit lenient on Romeo for killing Tybalt. So we get each of the lovers' reactions, and they're obviously distraught, and Romeo can't stop crying, and Juliet insists that Romeo's her husband and she's gonna stand by him regardless of what happened. Now we're gonna get another view, because remember early in the play we had Lord Capulet talking to Paris and kind of pushing Paris off, saying my daughter's too young, she's not ready to marry just yet. First you got to win her affection. Things are a little different now as a consequence of all the violence, the death of Mercutio, the death of Tybalt, and that seems to have affected Lord Capulet. So I'm going to read through the scene and we can talk about some things as they happen. So Capulet says here, things have fallen out so unluckily that we've had no time to move our daughter. Look, she loved her kinsman Tybalt dearly, and so did I. Well, we were born to die. 'Tis very late. She'll not come down tonight, I promise you, but for your company, I would have been in bed an hour ago. So Capulet is saying here that he thinks Juliet's really distraught, and we haven't had a chance to really talk to her about marrying you because, of the circumstances around Tybalt's death. Paris, these times of woe afford no time to woo. Madam, good night. Commend me to your daughter. Basically saying, in a time of woe or sadness, I shouldn't be here trying to woo or win over Juliet. Lady Capulet, I will, and know her mind early tomorrow. Tonight she's mewed up to her heaviness. Capulet, Sir, Paris, I will make a desperate tender of my child's love. I think she'll be ruled in all respects by me. Nay, more, I doubt it not. Wife, go to her ere you go to bed. Acquaint her here of my son Paris's love, and bid her, mark you me, on Wednesday next. But soft, what day is this? Paris, Monday, my lord. Capulet, Monday, ha ha. Well, Wednesday's too soon. Thursday let it be. Thursday tell her. She shall be married to this noble earl. Will you be ready? Do you like this haste? We'll keep a great ado, a friend or two, for hark you, Tybalt being slain so late, it may be thought we held him carelessly, being our kinsman if we revel too much. Therefore, we'll have some half a dozen friends, and there an end. But what you say to Thursday? So what's going on here is Capulet sort of spur of the moment says, I'll make a desperate tender. I think she'll do what I say she should do. She'll be ruled in all respects by me. And he decides that she's going to marry Paris. Why he comes to that decision, I'm going to ask you to probably do some thinking about that, so I don't want to talk it all through just yet. But not only is she going to marry Paris, but if this is Monday, she's going to have Paris and Juliet married by Thursday. So very sudden turnaround in Capulet's position, which was once that Juliet should be the one to make the decision whether she wants to marry Paris or not. Of course, Paris, he's wanted to marry Juliet all along, so when Capulet says, "What say you to Thursday?" Paris says, "My lord, I would that Thursday were tomorrow. I wish it was tomorrow." Doesn't seem to bother Paris much that Juliet hasn't given her consent to this. Paris is very traditional. He's operating in a society where you're expected to get the father's consent, the parents arrange for the marriage, and it's not really about love. Romeo and Juliet are operating under a different set of circumstances where they think your choices matter. But so you get this kind of conflict between tradition and modern ideas. So Capulet says, "Well, get you gone. Thursday it will be then. Go you to Juliet ere you go to bed. Prepare her, wife, against this wedding day. Farewell, my lord. Light my chamber, ho, afore me. It's very late, that we may call it early by and by. Good night." So Capulet basically just says, okay, let's go ahead and marry her on Thursday. So she knows nothing about this. We go to scene 5. And now, in the meantime, the nurse, when she went to visit Romeo in the friar's cell, gave Romeo Juliet's ring, which was sort of a symbol that she still loves him and wants him to come to her room that night. They got married in the morning. Now, why is it so important that Romeo comes to her room that night when he's been banished and is supposed to leave Verona? It's got to do with some customs in the Catholic Church. They got married, but the marriage isn't considered official until it's consummated, which means they have sex. So until they have sex, the marriage could be annulled. Basically, the church could say it never happened. So neither Romeo nor Juliet want their marriage annulled, which would be a very real possibility if the parents found out about it, especially after Romeo had killed Tybalt and was banished to Mantua. So consummating the marriage that night becomes really urgent. Not that they didn't want to do it anyway. They seem to want to do it anyway, but there's a sort of a greater urgency here. So, well, her father is making plans for her to marry Paris. Juliet is that night in her bedroom waiting for Romeo to arrive. Now, we don't get that scene. We start we start after it. So when we see them here in scene 5, they're waking up after having, consummated and slept some. And Juliet starts out, "Will thou be gone? It's not yet near day. It was the nightingale and not the lark." I should read the stage direction. So enter Romeo and Juliet above at the window. "Will thou be gone? It's not yet near day. It was the nightingale and not the lark that pierced the fearful hollow of thine ear. Nightly she sings on your pomegranate tree. Believe me, love, it was the nightingale." Romeo, "It was the lark, the herald of the morning. No nightingale. Look, love, what envious streaks do lace the severing clouds in yonder east. Night's candles are burned out, and jocund day stands tiptoe on the misty mountain tops. I must be gone and live, or stay and die." So they're debating, it's sort of the dusk, and they're debating whether it's still nighttime and maybe it's just a bright moon out, or if it's actually, the sun's about to rise. And of course, if Romeo was caught in Juliet's bedroom, nobody knows they're married. Nobody knows the circumstances here. And all they know is he's Tybalt's murderer and has been banished. They would kill him. So it's sort of urgent that they figure this out. But it's also ironic here that Juliet now, the one who in the balcony scene was so cautious, "How did you get here?" And Romeo, "By love's wings did I perch over these garden walls." He has this really fanciful, whimsical answer, and she's got this very practical concern for his safety. Now it's Juliet who's sort of the tables have turned after the consummation and after the marriage. She's the one who's saying, no, it's still nighttime, stay. And Romeo's the one who kind of, especially after killing Tybalt, understands the severity of the circumstances they're in. He says, "I must be gone and live or stay and die." Juliet, "Yon light is not daylight, I know it, aye. It is some meteor that the sun exhaled. To be to thee thus, to be to thee this night a torchbearer, and light thee on the way to Mantua. Therefore stay yet, thou needest not be gone. She's really trying to convince him to hang around a little longer. Romeo, let me not be taken, let me be put to death. I am so content, so thou will have it so. I say yon grey is not the morning's eye, 'tis but the pale reflex of Cynthia's brow. Nor that is not the lark, whose notes do beat the vaulty heaven so high above our heads. I have more care to stay than will to go. Come death, and welcome Juliet, wills it so. How is it, my soul? Let's talk. It is not day. Okay, Romeo is convinced, right? He says, now this is the return of Romeo the romantic. He wants to believe it, and so he says, all right, it's not day. I'm going to stay, and I'll say it's not the morning. I'll say the gray of dawn isn't the morning's eye. I have more care to stay than will to go. I'd rather be here. Come death and welcome. So he's saying, I'd rather stay here and die than go. So Juliet hears this and how adamant Romeo sounds, and now she gets anxious because Juliet ultimately is the more practical one. Juliet. It is, hie, hence, be gone away. It is the lark that sings so out of tune, straining harsh discords and unpleasing sharps. Some say the lark makes sweet division. This doth not so, for she divideth us. Some say the lark and loathed toad change eyes. Oh, now I would they had changed voices too, since arm from arm that voice doth us affray, hunting thee hence with hunts up to the day. Oh, now be gone, more light and light it grows. Okay, so she's saying, go. More light and dark to our woes. Okay, the nurse comes in. Madam, nurse, your mother is coming to your chamber. The day is broke. Be wary and look out. We know that the mother is coming because the father just had this conversation with Paris, and the mother is going to tell her that she's supposed to marry Paris now. Then window let day in and let life out. The life that is being let out would be Romeo. Farewell, farewell, one kiss and all descend. He goes down. So Romeo leaves, escapes from her balcony, and he now has to leave Verona and go off into exile in Mantua, which is his sentence from the prince. So he's not allowed to come back. Juliet. Art thou gone so, love, lord, I, husband, friend? I must hear from thee every day in the hour, for in a minute there are many days. Oh, by this count I shall be much in years, ere I again behold my Romeo. Romeo. Farewell, I will omit no opportunity that may convey my greetings, love, to thee. So he'll write to her. Oh, thinkest thou we shall ever meet again? Romeo. I doubt it not. And all these woes shall serve for sweet discourses in our time to come. Well, the fact that she's asking the question becomes sort of a bit of foreshadowing. They do meet again, but they're not going to meet again in happy or fortunate circumstances. And trust me, my love, in my eye, oh God, I have an ill-divining soul. This is Juliet. O God, I have an ill-divining soul. Methinks I see thee, now thou art so low as one dead in the bottom of a tomb. Either my eyesight fails or thou lookest pale. I mean, how's that for a terrible vision? He's about to walk away and she imagines him dead in his grave. Of course, this becomes a really ominous moment of foreshadowing. Romeo. And trust me, love, in my eye, so do you. Dry sorrow drinks our blood, adieu, adieu. Juliet, now alone. O fortune, fortune, all men call thee fickle. If thou art fickle, what dost thou with him that is renowned for faith? Be fickle, fortune, for then I hope thou wilt not keep him long, but send him back. All right, now Lady Capulet is going to break the news to her. Ho, daughter, ho, daughter, are you up? Who is it that calls? Is it my lady mother? Is she not down so late or up so early? What unaccustomed cause procures her hither? So Juliet goes to her mother. Why, how now, Juliet? Madam, I am not well. Evermore weeping for your cousin's death? What, wilt thou wash him from his grave with tears? And if thou couldst not make him live. Therefore, have done. Some grief shows much love, but much of grief shows still some want of wit. Basically, the mother's saying, what, are you still crying over Tybalt? That's a bit much. It's time to get over it. You can grieve a little bit, but don't grieve too much. Juliet. Yet let me weep for such a feeling loss. Well, the loss she's weeping for is Tybalt. I'm sorry, is not Tybalt as the mother imagines, but is Romeo. And what's going to follow in this section, I'm going to ask you to go back to it in the questions, is a lot of double entendre. She's saying something about Romeo that the mother interprets to be about Tybalt, and there's a lot of deliberate miscommunication here. Lady Capulet, so shall you feel the loss, but not the friend which you weep for. Juliet, feeling so the loss, cannot choose but ever weep the friend. Well, the friend Juliet's imagining is Romeo. The one that the mother thinks she's talking about is Tybalt. Well, girl, thou weepest not so much for his death as that the villain lives who slaughtered him. Lady Capulet is referring to Romeo as the villain who slaughtered Tybalt. Juliet, which villain, madam? Lady Capulet, that same villain, Romeo. Juliet, villain and he be many miles asunder. God pardon him, I do with all my heart, and yet no man like he doth grieve my heart. That is because the traitor murderer lives. I, madam, from the reach of these my hands, would none but I venge my cousin's death. She's saying, I wish no one but me would avenge my cousin's death. Lady Capulet, we will have vengeance for it, fear thou not. Then weep no more. I'll send to one in Mantua, where that same banished runagate doth live, shall give him such an unaccustomed dram that he shall soon keep Tybalt company, and then I hope thou will be satisfied. Oh, this is some crazy stuff. The mother's basically saying she's going to undermine the prince's sentence and take matters into her own hand to poison Romeo while he's in exile in Mantua. So if you're wondering why some of the drastic things Juliet chooses to do after this moment, why she chooses those things, you got to remember that her mother's planning to kill Romeo. They're planning some what you call vigilante justice. They're not happy with the outcome from the prince. They want to see Romeo himself dead. Juliet, indeed, I never shall be satisfied with Romeo till I behold him dead. Is my poor heart for a kinsman vexed. Look at how deliberate that ambiguity is here. I shall never be satisfied with Romeo till I behold him dead. So the mother hears, I won't be satisfied with Romeo till I behold him dead. But Juliet is actually connecting that word dead to the line that follows. Dead is my poor heart for a kinsman vexed. So her heart, she's saying, I won't be satisfied with Romeo till I behold him, till I see him again, and my heart is dead because of a kinsman vexed. Well, the kinsman vexed in her mind is her husband. Madam, if you could find out but a man to bear a poison, I would temper it, that Romeo should, upon receipt thereof, soon sleep in quiet. Oh, how my heart abhors to hear him named, and cannot come to him, to wreak the love I bore my cousin upon his body that slaughtered him. A lot of very subtle double entendre there, and I ask you a question that's going to have you go back and sort through some of that. Lady Capulet, find thou the means, and I'll find such a man. But now, I'll tell thee of joyful tidings, girl. So now, I'm going to change the subject. I want to talk about something else. Juliet, and joy comes well in such a needy time. What are they, I beseech your ladyship? Lady Capulet, well, thou hast a careful father, child, one who, to put thee from thy heaviness, hath sorted out a sudden day of joy, that thou expectest not, nor I looked not for. Juliet's like, huh? What? Madam, in happy time, what day is that? Lady Capulet, marry, my child, early next Thursday morning, the gallant young and noble gentleman, the county Paris at St. Peter's Church, shall happily make thee there a joyful bride. Juliet, so she's about to freak out here. Now by St. Peter's Church and Peter too, he shall not make me there a joyful bride. I wonder at this haste that I must wed ere that he should be my husband comes to woo. She's like, what do you mean? I'm supposed to marry this guy before he's even come to woo me or to court me? I pray you, tell my lord and father, madam, I will not marry yet. And when I do, I swear it shall be Romeo, whom you know I hate, rather than Paris. These are news indeed. Juliet grasps at a name that she knows her mother would see as like more vile to them than Paris, and says, "Oh, I'd rather marry Romeo." Of course, she actually would rather marry Romeo because she did marry Romeo. Lady Capulet, "Here comes your father. Tell him so yourself, and see how he will take it at your hands." So now Lord Capulet. "When the sun sets, the earth doth drizzle dew, but for the sunset of my brother's son, it rains downright." Talk about the grief of over Tybalt. "How now? A conduit girl? What, still in tears? Evermore showering? In one little body thou counterfeits a bark, a sea, a wind. For still thy eyes, which I may call the sea, do ebb and flow with tears. The bark thy body is, sailing in this salt flood, the winds thy sighs, who, raging with thy tears, and they with them, without a sudden calm, will overset thy tempest-tossed body. How now, wife? Have you delivered to her our decree?" So Capulet's sort of echoing what the mother had said earlier about moving beyond the need to move beyond grief. Raging with thy tears, and they with them, without a sudden calm, will overset thy tempest-tossed body. Like basically, he's using a metaphor of a ship in a storm, and if the tears are rain, they will eventually capsize the ship of your life. And he's warning her against that. So he's telling her not to be so emotional. Again, he thinks it's about Tybalt's death, but probably her emotion is tied to Romeo's banishment and his leaving, especially how quickly he left after they consummated their marriage. So Lady Capulet now is going to give the news that she refuses to marry Paris. "Aye, sir, but she will none. She gives you thanks. I would the fool were married to her grave." That's a bit ominous. She says, "I'd rather she was dead." Capulet, "Soft, take me with you. Take me with you, wife." "How? She will none. Doth she not give us thanks? Is she not proud? Doth she not count her blessed, unworthy as she is, that we have wrought so worthy a gentleman to be her bridegroom?" He's getting upset. Like, doesn't she understand what we've done for her? What do you mean she's not grateful? He's growing in anger. Juliet, "Not proud you have, but thankful that you have. Proud can I never be of what I hate, but thankful even for hate that is meant as love." All right, her emotion is really strong here because she's married to Romeo already. Now, they don't know this, so they just think she's being incredibly difficult. How, chopped logic? What is this? Proud, and I thank you not, and yet not proud, mistress minion you. Thanks me no thankings, nor proud me no prouds, but fettle your fine joints 'gainst Thursday next to go with Paris to St. Peter's Church, or I will drag thee on a hurdle thither. Out, you green sickness carrion, out, you baggage, you tallow face. I mean, look at some of these insults that he's thrusting at his daughter. He's calling her a piece of rotting meat, a piece of baggage, a burden, a coward. This is nasty and cruel, and where does this come from? Lady Capulet, fie, what are you, mad? "Good father, I beseech you on my knees, hear me with patience, but to speak a word." So Juliet's trying to convince him, calm down. Let me talk about why I don't want to get married. And Capulet is just in a rage. He won't hear any of it. "Hang thee, young baggage, disobedient wretch. I'll tell thee what, get thee to a church on Thursday, or never after look me in the face. Speak not, reply not, do not answer me. My fingers itch. Wife, we scarce thought us blessed that God had lent us but this only child. But now I see this one is too much, and that we have a curse in having her. Out on her, hiding." Part of why Capulet is so eager to marry Juliet off to Paris, this stable, worthy gentleman, is this is her only daughter. And consider what's happened in his family. His brother's son, Tybalt, as far as we know, his brother's only son, was murdered as a result of this feud. So he sees his brother lose his only son, and he suddenly wants to know that his daughter is okay and secure. And marrying her is a form of security, marrying her to a good match. He wants to know that she's safe. It also helps that Paris himself is a kinsman to the prince. So he's sort of outside of the polarized feud between the Montagues on one side and the Capulets on the other side, it's probably a good and safe thing to have his daughter married to the prince's relative. Okay, so the nurse intervenes here. God in heaven bless her. You are to blame, my lord, to rate her so. The nurse is scolding Capulet for being so harsh with Juliet. Capulet, and why? My lady Wisdom, hold your tongue. Good Prudence, smatter with your gossips, go. Basically, shut up, nurse. Nurse, I speak no treason. Capulet, oh God, ye, good evening. Then, okay, go. Nurse, may not one speak? Capulet, peace, you mumbling fool. Utter your gravity over a gossip's bowl, for here we need it not. So I guess, no, one cannot speak. The women really have no voice here at this point in which Capulet's made his decision. Lady Capulet, you are too hot. Like, calm down. Capulet, God's bread, it makes me mad. Day, night, hour, tide, time, work, play, alone in company, still my care hath been to have her matched. And having now provided a gentleman of noble parentage, of fair dimensions, youthful and nobly lined, stuffed, as they say, with honorable parts, proportioned as one's thought would wish a man, and then to have a wretched pulling fool, a whining mammet in her fortune's tender, to answer, I'll not wed, I cannot love, I'm too young, I pray you pardon me. But as you will not wed, I'll pardon you. Graze where you will, you shall not house with me. Look to it, think on it. I do not use to jest. Thursday is near, lay hand on heart, advise, and you be mine, I'll give you to my friend. And you be not, hang, starve, beg, die in the streets. For by my soul I'll never acknowledge thee, nor what is mine shall never do thee good. Trust to it, bethink you, I'll not be forsworn. This is harsh. What he's saying to her is, do what I'm telling you to do, and I'll be your friend. I'll give you to my friend. I'll be your father. I'll love you. Our relationship is preserved. And don't do what I do, and be you not, and you be not. Hang, beg, starve, die in the streets. He's going to disown her. Does he mean this? Is he really going to follow through with this? She's a 13-year-old girl. It's probably the most harsh thing she's ever heard from her father. She's certainly going to take this to heart. Maybe he's just in a moment of temper and he's not so serious about this if he were to pause and think about it. But this is what Juliet's hearing. Either you marry Paris or you're disowned. Meanwhile, she's in a very difficult spot because she knows she's already married. Juliet, is there no pity sitting in the clouds that sees into the bottom of my grief? Oh, sweet my mother, cast me not away. Delay this marriage for a month, a week, or if you do not make the bridal bed in that dim monument, where Tybalt lies. So she's appealing to her mother. Like, can't you just delay this a little, put him off a little? Because if you can't, you might as well make my bridal bed in the grave. In that dim monument where Tybalt lies. Lady Capulet, talk not to me, for I'll not speak a word. Do as thou wilt, for I have done with thee. Basically, she's siding with the husband now. Oh God, oh nurse, how shall this be prevented? My husband is on earth, my faith in heaven. How shall that faith return again to earth, unless that husband send it from heaven by leaving earth? Comfort me, counsel me. Alack, alack, that heaven should practice stratagems upon so soft a subject as myself. What sayest thou? Hast thou not a word of joy, some comfort, nurse? Okay, so she's turning to the last person that she trusts, the only one who knows the truth, and her confidant, the one she believes will help her and look out what's best for her. So the nurse, she's expecting support from the nurse, and here's what the nurse says. Faith, here it is. Romeo is banished, and all the world to nothing, that he dares never come back to challenge you. So she's basically saying the odds are he's not going to be able to come back and lay a claim to you. Or if he does, it needs must be by stealth. Then, since the case so stands as now it doth, I think it best you married with the county. Oh, he's a lovely gentleman. So the nurse, who has been yelled at by Capulet, who has basically been told to shut up or get out, is saying to Juliet now, Romeo's been banished, and I don't see any way in which he could possibly come back. So, you should probably just marry Paris. He's a lovely gentleman. Romeo's a dishcloth to him. An eagle, madam, hath not so green, so quick, so fair an eye as Paris hath. Beshrew my very heart, I think you are happy in this second match, for it excels your first, or if it did not, your first is dead, or 'twere as good as he were, as living here, and you no use of him. So Juliet, desperate for comfort and for somebody who can see the world as she does, finds that the nurse is betraying her. The nurse is siding with the father. Why does the nurse side with the father? Maybe it's got something to do with how the father yelled at her, and she depends on these people to make a living. Maybe it's some practical reasoning, though, that Paris really is a decent and fine gentleman, as far as we know, and the situation with Romeo, especially in light of Tybalt's death, is impossible. So Juliet wants to know, speakest thou from thy heart? The nurse, and from my soul too, or else beshrew them both. Amen. What? Well, thou hast comforted me marvelous much. Go in, and tell my lady I'm gone, having displeased my father to Lawrence's cell, to make confession and be absolved. Nurse, marry, I will, and this is wisely done. Okay, Juliet is basically shutting out the nurse here. She's no longer going to keep the nurse in her confidence. You've comforted me marvelous much. That's sarcasm. She hasn't comforted her at all. She's deeply disturbed her. And she says, go tell my lady, tell my mother, I'm gone, having displeased my father, to Lawrence's cell. So I'm going to the priest. I'm going to Friar Lawrence to make confession, for the sin of having been disobedient to her father. She doesn't feel this. This is not actually what she's doing. She's just looking to give an excuse. She's lying to the nurse so that she can go talk to Friar Lawrence, because she's hoping that at least Friar Lawrence, who has married her to Romeo, will still be her ally. So now that the nurse is out, we see her more honest thoughts. Ancient damnation, O wicked fiend, is it more sin to wish me thus forsworn? Is it more sin to wish me that I break my marriage vows, or to dispraise my lord with that same tongue, which she hath praised him with above compare, so many thousand times? Go, counselor, thou and my bosom henceforth shall be twain. You and my bosom. So go, counselor. She's talking to the nurse. The nurse is already gone, but you and my bosom, you and my heart shall be twain, shall be opposed. Basically saying, I'm not going to, take you in my confidence anymore. I'll go to the friar to know his remedy, and if all else fails, myself have the power to die. She's desperate. So the nurse, her one confidant in the world, is not on her side anymore. She's hoping that if she goes to the friar will still be on her side. If not, if all else fails, myself have power to die. If all else fails, I'll kill myself. So we have a lot of intense moments where it seems like death is right at the foreground of her thoughts in terms of how she might resolve this.